always releases in media that strive to push what is generally acceptable, to bump up against the boundaries of good taste and ask, what happens if I step across this line? Violence and sex are one thing, and every country around the world has different views on what is and isn't acceptable, but some games that aren't even looking to cause a stir wind up creating controversy. This list explores some of the strangest cases of video games that were given the big red stop sign at the border and told to turn back around and go back to where they came from. I'm Si for WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 iconic video games banned for ridiculous reasons. Number 10. HalfLife Singapore. As with everywhere else in the world it was released, Half-Life was a smash hit in Singapore, and why wouldn't it be? It's Half-Life. Half-Life is awesome. Gamers were able to get fully nestled into the title for a full year before suddenly the Singapore government decided that it was too violent. This referred to the original base game and also all the mods and variations that had become available in that time, including the highly popular Counter-Strike. What makes this particularly strange is that whilst the country was no stranger to banning games for their violence, it had been perfectly fine for 12 months. Why it took so long, we'll never know, but when Half-Life did get the ban hammer, someone in the country's ruling powers took it very seriously as they approved numerous raids. Police stormed retailers as well as anywhere that might host in-person events and LAN parties to retrieve copies and stop the spread of its in-game content. However, Singapore gamers didn't take this lying down, and online petitions gained traction pretty quickly. They argued that pulling sales of the genre-defining shooter would actually hurt the financial state of Singapore's electronic entertainment market. Thousands of signatures in 1 week caused the government to back down and lift the ban. Number 9. EA Sports MMA, Denmark. Sports are a pretty ubiquitous thing across the planet, and you'd be hard-pressed to find many that are going to ruffle feathers. Sure, some are more contact-heavy than others, but there's a big difference between boxing games and the outright brutality of something like Manhunt that stirred pots internationally. There could be an argument made for EA Sports' MMA games for being violent and promoting bare-knuckle fighting, but that's not the reason that the highly anticipated first title for a rather young combat sport found itself banned in Denmark. The only noticeable example of a banned game in the country, the title instead found itself on the chopping block for references to energy drinks. Denmark has always been worried about the unknown long-term effects of taurine and at one stage banned such beverages outright. Whilst you can purchase them now, think of them like cigarettes, tucked away and certainly not advertised. Sponsorship deals are an inescapable part of real-world MMA, so it's a big part of the video game too. Thus, Rockstar Energy logos are found all over the place. After the ban, rather than simply remove them and re-release the game, EA decided not to bother with Denmark at all. Number 8. Roblox, United Arab Emirates. One of the most successful online multiplayer games of today, Roblox has a long history of fostering creativity. Rather than a single game, the title hosts endless bright ideas crafted and played by its millions of users. With its happy and bright look and free-to-play availability, the title has been a smash hit with young gamers getting into the hobby for the first time. Despite all this, the United Arab Emirates decided that Roblox was in fact a detriment to the children of its nation. In 2018, Attorney General Dr. Shamsi placed a ban on the game for being damaging to the mental health of young UAE citizens. Specifically, it appears that the game's text chat was what really put the nail in its coffin, as it opened children up to all kinds of unexpected interactions. Admittedly, this has been a source of controversy with the game the world over, and the UAE censors decided to just wash their hands of it. Naturally, the Roblox community wasn't best pleased and campaigned long and hard for an overturn of the ban. Arguments were made at how its broad creativity had positives that far outweighed the negatives of its chat box. Whilst the game definitely still has its issues with sordid players slipping sexual content into this children's game, UAE finally lifted the ban in 2021. Number 7. Pokemon, Saudi Arabia. You don't get to be the biggest media franchise in the world without expansion, and the likes of Pikachu and friends are recognised all over the globe. However, some countries have taken issue with the family-friendly monster battler. In 2001, the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia banned the franchise, and Qatar and Egypt followed suit on the grounds of promoting evolution over the word of religion. There's a reason that many Pokemon games start with creepy crawlies to catch. The Caterpie to Metapod to Butterfree line exists to show players how Pokemon transform and grow stronger, but it should also be a good demonstration that the evolution in the game isn't the kind that riled up such governments. Pokemon doesn't evolve in the Darwinian sense so much as they transform or go through metamorphosis. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly or a tadpole becoming a frog are observable in nature, and considering that series creator Satoshi Tajiri was inspired by bug hunting, that's as deep as the series is looking to get. It's hardly a statement on the religion versus science debate. Additionally, Saudi Arabia specifically focused on the Game Boy Color title based on the Pokemon trading card game, claiming that the symbol for colorless energy was the Star of David and proof that the games were Zionist. If you say so. Number 6. Resident Evil 2, Germany. Germany has a long-standing history of censorship thanks to the Federal Department for Media Harmful to Young Persons, most commonly known as the Index. During the early days of Capcom's survival horror series, several entries found themselves banned for sale due to their violence and gore. What makes Resident Evil 2 in particular remarkable was the anticipation of the ban, with the big jump in graphics and increased realism over the first game. Yes, this game was the height of realism in 1998. Capcom Europe were very aware that German censors would be on edge. So when the European version of Resident Evil Director's Cut released, the bonus demo for RE2 was noticeably absent from the German versions. It made sense, but for fans this was concerning because rather regretfully Capcom's art team forgot to take the screenshot of the RE2 demo off the back of the box. Oops. As expected, Resident Evil 2 did indeed land on the Index. Thus, Capcom put together a cut version of the game to try once more, but this was also banned. It wasn't until 2014 when Resi 2, 3 and Code Veronica found themselves freed from Germany's Index and available uncensored for the first time on the PlayStation Store. Number 5. Fallout 3, India. Fallout 3 specifically has a weird history with censorship. Before release, Australian censors got a little uneasy about players liberally injecting themselves with what appeared to be morphine. When it was changed to Med-X, the game was cleared for release. In Japan, there are some changes to the title to avoid people comparing the game's use of nukes to the real-world Hiroshima bombing. In India, the game was outright banned before release due to cultural insensitivity. Now, this one makes a lot of sense, as the people of the Hindu faith believe that the cow is a sacred beast, so it was a good guess that many Indian players wouldn't be happy playing a game with a radiated two-headed bovine. What makes this even touchier, though, is Bethesda's name for the mutant. Either a twisted joke or a very unfortunate coincidence, Brahmin happens to be the name for a certain chaste in Hindu society, a kind of priest role. So not only are you mutating their sacred animal, you're giving them a pretty disrespectful name. There are clearly a lot of things in Fallout 3 that could flag the game up for censorship, but treatment of bovine is probably not one that the developers expected. Number 4. Minecraft, South Korea. There are plenty of games out there that have been banned across the world that you can identify just by looking at them. Minecraft, the pleasant hive of block building creativity, is not exactly the first thing that comes to mind. Whilst not outright banned, there were certain restrictions put on Minecraft's audience in South Korea. The Cinderella Law, also known as the Shutdown Law, made it illegal for minors to play games online between midnight and 6 AM. This was designed to keep the nation's youth focused on education and work. To enforce this, South Korea legislation made it so that gamers had to have an Xbox Live account to play the title. Because Minecraft requires those opening an account to be 18, suddenly fans in parts of the world were locked out of the title until they were fully blown adults. Lucky for them, the law was repealed a month later, but for a moment there, the game was essentially an 18 plus or an R-rated title. What an odd thought. Minecraft, one of the most sought after titles for gamers of all ages, for a while was out of reach for one of its target demographics. Number 3. Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, Indonesia. Many video game bans happen under the pretense of protecting the innocence or societal standards of a nation. When it comes to games that are forbade from crossing country lines, portraying a different political school of thought, or outlawed religious iconography are pretty sad but common reasons that no longer surprise. Very few bans happen so blatantly based on the needs and whims of one man. In Sam Fisher's second outing, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, players go up against an anti-separatist Indonesian terrorist group that call themselves Darah dan Doa, or Blood and Prayer in English. In case it needs specifying, this is a totally fictional group in a fictional story. However, there was one person who took particular concern about this, and that was the Indonesian president himself. President Yudhoyono, who had taken office just that year, saw the story as a personal attack on himself and banned the game from his country. Perhaps he was worried that the group were real and were afraid to glorify them in any way, or maybe he saw it as a way to quell any potential inspiration of guerrilla warfare. If anything, surely reacting so strongly to a video game just shows to your opposition that you're already scared. Number 2. Tropico 5, Thailand. In 2014, the marketing manager for New Era Thailand told the media that Tropico 5 was a good game, but despite having brought the series to the country previously, that the storyline has developed further and there might be some part of it that's not appropriate in the current situation. What he was referring to was Tropico 5's plot that puts the player in the role of a leader of a nation that gives them morally different ways to play. They can choose to either build their country country benevolently and through democracy, or take more of the iron fist approach and form a military that controls the media and forces their civilization into line. The issue here specifically was that a day before Tropico 5 was due to release, Thailand's leadership had been seized by a military coup that was controlling the media and forcing their civilization into line. This one isn't ridiculous as in a little strange, more like a little scary, and it was unfortunate timing on the franchise's part. The military junta called themselves the National Council for Peace and Order, and that's exactly the line they used to ban the game from distribution, that it might disrupt peace and order. Number 1. Pokemon Go, Malaysia. The Pokemon series has taken a long time to come to the country of Malaysia in most capacities. Whilst various anime have aired there over the years, the core part of the property didn't make it over from Japan for quite some time. The first Pokemon games released officially in Malaysia are 2014's Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. However, when it comes to putting their foot down, it was a particularly successful spin-off that caused the Malaysian authorities to make genuine statements about the game. Senior religious official Zulkifli Muhammad Al-Bakri said of the AR-driven phone app that Pokemon Go and all Pokemon characters should be avoided as it can bring harm. More specifically, that the game promoted a search for power and deities with certain powers which could lead to gambling. It seems a pretty extreme reaction to have about a spin-off that gamers worldwide spent at least all of the summer of 2016 playing, using it as an excuse to go outside and drag their fingertips repeatedly over the screen to catch 300 Pidgeys. Now, concerned that the game might lead to accidents from players not paying attention to the world around them, fine. A search for power makes it sound as though your hunts for rare Pokemon may one day lead you to megalomania. Though, come to think of it, that's pretty much how Team Rocket came to be, so they might have a point. And that's the list. Let us know what you thought of this video down in the comments below, and any other ridiculous examples of video games being outright banned that you can think of. Make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I've been Cy for WhatCulture, and have a good week.